So I was at an ad network company called socialmedia.com, which was an ad network focused on social media applications. If you remember back in the days of Facebook apps and open social and the rest. And I was fascinated with the advertising ecosystem, and I really wanted to be early in the next train, on the next train. Mobile was already fairly mature. Ad mob acquisition had already happened. And so I looked at pretty much every media sector, print, radio, music, and you could see digital technology had disrupted or was in the process of disrupting it. TV was the only one that had left, and it was the largest brand advertising market. So, it was really simple. I thought that TV advertising, or I should say TV channels, are ultimately going to be replaced with TV apps. And in that process, TV advertising will be completely disrupted, which led me to start AdRise, which was a white label video on demand platform plus a monetization engine. Essentially, we powered streaming apps and we helped monetize them using video advertising. And I have to say, it was really hard to raise money for it. In the early days, people didn't believe that TV will be disrupted. The power of bundle was very strong, and I was told that it will never change. Then the technology wasn't there. The streaming qualities were not good. And then later on, when Netflix proved them wrong, I was told that subscription video on demand was the way to go. So a lot of naysayers, both in Silicon Valley and in Hollywood, about ad-supported video on demand. So it was a lot of battles that we had to fight to get here.
So how did you go about funding, and how did you find the first investors, and what are some lessons about getting an idea together and funding it? And how did it go in your instance?
Yeah, look, I was also not an experienced entrepreneur, so that also added complexity to fundraising process. So I raised money from friends and family. I think it was about $400,000. Back in the days, raising a $10 million seed round was not a reality. And then that ultimately, a couple of years later, we ended up raising our round A, about $2 million, $2.5 million, led by Foundation Capital. And I think the thesis was very fluid on their side, frankly. I think most folks thought that there was something interesting here. Some of them believed in me, believe it or not. And slowly we proved them wrong. The naysayers proved them wrong. I think our performance, especially in the past 6 years, has been truly phenomenal. So slowly we proved investors that there is a huge opportunity in AVOD and in building our business.
It's different for everyone looking for funding, but when you look for funding, how do you go about it? Do you use a merchant bank? Is it connections? And also, when do you know kind of the right time to take an investment and to figure out the valuation? Any guidance along those lines?
Yeah, look, first thing I tell entrepreneurs who come and talk to me about fundraising is that if they have a big idea, and this is not to suggest that their idea is not a good idea. Sometimes great ideas should not raise money for. It has to be a big idea, a multi-billion-dollar idea, to raise money for, because otherwise you're not going to attract the right VCs. And if they do, even if you do, you're going to disappoint them. Their financial models are such that they need huge exits. to benefit their investors. So first question is, is this a good idea that is small, that you should fund it yourself and make a living off of it? Or is it a huge idea that requires funding that you're just going to go for a massive exit? Once you determine that, then you need to be able to communicate that story and that message to investors, which is key. I think the reality is the world has changed quite a bit, especially as we were talking about it today. The tech investing market is super hot. I think it's much easier to raise money today than when I started the company. And that's great. I think there are a lot of good ideas that probably wouldn't get funded a decade ago that today they get funded by VCs, and that's fantastic. So I think the most important question is you need to ask yourself, how much do you need to get to the next phase? Clearly define that for yourself and the new investors, and then go try to explain to them why your idea is an idea that's worth investing and the returns are going to be massive.
Farhad, so I wanted to ask you, we've spoken to several entrepreneurs who've gone through different exits and paths, some through IPOs, some through private equity, and some through strategic acquisitions, which you've gone through with Fox. Tell us, why you went through a strategic sale. Is that something you had been thinking about? Was the timing right? Give us some background on that.
Sure. First of all, being an entrepreneur is just incredible. It's one of the most interesting things I've done in my life, and I cherish every moment of it. So for those of your listeners who are interested, I highly encourage them to try it. It's a lot of fun, and also it's an incredible learning process. So I have to say I learned a lot in that decade of running Tubi as a standalone company. Now I'm learning a lot running Tubi inside of Fox, which is a very different experience. Now, in terms of the exit opportunities, there is no right way to do it. Some take it public. We were actively working on getting Tubi ready to go public, and we were raising a round of financing. I started talking to Fox, and just stars aligned. We had similar visions. They were very supportive. They have been very supportive post-acquisition. And it made a lot of sense for us to use the muscle and the power of a larger media company that's very sophisticated in this space to help better our products, our offering, and our business. And sometimes when the opportunity knocks, you gotta take a serious look at it, and if it makes sense, execute on it. Which is what we did, and I think it was absolutely the right thing to do.